First story, The Hollow Watcher. We had been driving for hours, lost somewhere in the forests of Maine. It was just me, Kyle, and Rachel, looking for a place to crash for the night. The road was empty, swallowed by the thick trees on both sides, and the GPS had stopped working miles ago. Then we saw it, a house, old but strangely well kept, standing alone by a still black lake. The windows were intact, the porch looked solid, and the front door hung slightly open, as if inviting us in. "This place is perfect," Kyle said, grabbing his backpack. "Way better than sleeping in the car." Rachel hesitated. "It looks weirdly clean for being abandoned." I pushed open the door. The air inside was stale but not rotten. There was furniture, a fireplace, even a few dusty paintings on the walls. It felt frozen in time, like someone had just stepped out years ago and never returned. We chose the upstairs bedroom. Kyle dropped onto the bed, exhausted. Rachel sat on the floor, scrolling through her dead phone. I lay down, staring at the wooden beams above. The silence felt thick. Then, around midnight, I heard it. Slow, deliberate footsteps outside. I sat up. "Do you hear that?" Rachel nodded, eyes wide. Kyle was already at the window. "Someone's out there," he whispered. I joined him, peering down. A figure stood on the path leading to the house, an old man, wrapped in a tattered hooded cloak. He was facing us, motionless, like he had been watching for a long time. "Maybe he's lost?" Rachel whispered. But the man suddenly moved, not walking, gliding. He didn't lift his feet, just slid forward in an unnatural way. I felt my stomach drop. Then he stopped at the porch. The front door creaked. "He's coming in," Kyle hissed. We scrambled. Kyle locked the bedroom door. Rachel grabbed a heavy lamp. I backed against the wall, heart pounding. A slow, deliberate knock. Silence. Then another knock. Louder. Then the door handle rattled. Rachel whimpered. I held my breath, and then, boom! The whole door shuddered as something massive slammed into it. The hinges groaned. The wood splintered. Kyle grabbed my arm. "We have to get out." But before we could move, the knocking stopped. The house went dead silent again. Then, click. The bedroom door unlocked. The handle turned. I threw myself against the window. It was stuck. Kyle yanked at it, his face red with effort. The door creaked open behind us. I didn't look. I didn't want to see. Then, bang! The window burst outward. Kyle fell through, hitting the roof below. Rachel and I scrambled after him, crawling onto the slanted shingles. Down below, the old man stepped onto the porch, his hood slipping back, his face hollow. No eyes, no mouth, just a smooth stretch of pale skin. He lifted a hand, long, thin fingers reaching up. Rachel screamed. We slid down the roof, landing hard on the ground. Kyle was already running toward the car. Behind us, the front door slammed open. I didn't turn back. I couldn't. The car roared to life. Gravel flew as we peeled away. I looked in the mirror. The house was gone. Only the dark lake remained. And on the shore stood the old man, watching. Second story. The House by Black Hollow Pond. I was 10 when I first saw the house by Black Hollow Pond. It was an old Victorian, its paint peeling, its windows dark and empty. The pond beside it was black as ink, never rippling, even when the wind blew. My father told me to stay away, that no one had lived there for years. But kids in town whispered about the lights that flickered inside at night, about the shadows that moved behind the curtains. 15 years later, I came back to Black Hollow. My father had passed, leaving me the family home just outside town. On my first night back, I stood at my window, looking toward the pond. The house was still there, rotting, forgotten. But something was different. A single light glowed in an upstairs window. I told myself someone had finally bought it. That was the logical explanation. But a deep, gnawing dread settled in my gut. That house had been abandoned for decades. No one in town would go near it. So, who was inside? I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next evening, I took a flashlight and walked the overgrown path to the house. The air around it felt thick, pressing against my skin like unseen hands. The front door was slightly open, swinging with the wind, though there was no breeze. I I stepped inside. The smell of damp wood and something sour filled my nose. My flashlight flickered. The hallway stretched before me, lined with dusty portraits. Faces blurred, eyes hollow. A staircase wound up to the second floor, where the light had been. A whisper drifted from upstairs. My breath caught. It was faint, like a sigh, but I heard it. I gripped the flashlight tighter and climbed the stairs, each step groaning under my weight. The whispering grew louder. It wasn't one voice, it was many. I reached the landing. The door to the lit room stood slightly ajar. I pushed it open. The room was empty, just a rocking chair, moving slowly, as if someone had just left it. A candle burned on a table, its wax dripping onto yellowed papers. Then the whispering stopped. The silence was deafening. And then the chair stopped rocking, a sharp breath behind me. I spun around. The doorway was empty, but the air was wrong, heavy, thick with something unseen. My flashlight flickered again. The candle sputtered. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls, twisting, shifting. A shape rose from the darkness in the corner. A woman, her face pale and hollow, eyes black pits. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Her fingers, too long, too thin, twitched as she reached for me. I stumbled back. The candle died. My flashlight went out. I ran. Down the stairs, through the hallway, past those staring portraits. Their faces were different now, twisted, grinning. I burst outside, gasping. The house stood silent, dark. But in the upstairs window, something moved. A shape. Watching, I never went back. But sometimes late at night when I pass the pond, I see the light in that window. And I know she's still there, waiting. Third story, the Hollow Lake Nightmare. I never wanted to spend the weekend at Hollow Lake. It was my sister's idea, some kind of family bonding trip. "It'll be nice," she said, "just us, the water, and a peaceful cabin in the woods." But the moment we arrived, I felt something was off. The lake was too still. The trees surrounding it seemed taller than they should be, their shadows stretching unnaturally long even in the midday sun. The cabin itself was old, its wooden walls weathered and warped like they had been struggling against something unseen for years. That first night, we heard it. A soft scratching at the back door. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs. My sister Emily laughed it off. "Probably a raccoon," she muttered and went back to her book. But I wasn't convinced. The sound was too slow, too deliberate. An hour later, we heard it again. This time, it wasn't just scratching. It was a whisper, faint, almost human, but wrong. Words I couldn't quite make out, murmured through the wooden slats of the door. "Do you hear that?" I whispered. Emily finally looked up, her face pale. "It's the wind," she said, but she didn't sound sure. Then came the knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. It wasn't the sound of an animal. It wasn't the wind. Someone, or something, was outside. We locked the doors, shut the curtains, and huddled in the living room, trying to ignore the growing sense of dread. The knocking didn't stop. It moved, from the back door to the windows to the front porch, always slow, always patient. Then the whispering returned, closer this time. "Let us in." Emily grabbed my arm, her fingers digging into my skin. "We need to leave," she whispered. I nodded, but when I peeked through the curtain, my breath caught in my throat. Figures stood by the water's edge. Tall, emaciated things, their limbs too long, their heads cocked unnaturally to one side. Their skin was pale, almost translucent, stretched tight over their bones. But their eyes, black, empty voids, were locked onto the cabin. And they were smiling. "Back door," I breathed. "Now." We ran. The moment we reached the kitchen, the front door burst open behind us, slamming against the wall. Cold air rushed in, carrying the scent of damp earth and something rotten. We didn't look back. We sprinted out the back, our feet pounding against the wooden porch. The forest was dense, but we ran blindly, the whispers growing louder, closer. Then Emily screamed. I turned just in time to see one of them lunge from the darkness, its clawed fingers wrapping around her wrist. She thrashed, kicked, but it didn't let go. its mouth stretched open, revealing rows of jagged, uneven teeth. I grabbed a rock and swung. It cracked against the thing's skull with a sickening crunch, and it let out a high-pitched wail, releasing Emily. We ran until our lungs burned, until the whispers faded into the night. When we finally reached the highway, an old pickup truck stopped for us. The driver, a grizzled man with wary eyes, took one look at our terrified faces and said, "You came from the lake, didn't you?" We nodded. He sighed. "You're lucky. Most people don't make it out." I turned to Emily, my hands still shaking. "What the hell were those things?" The driver didn't answer. He just stared ahead and muttered, "They don't like being seen." And in the rearview mirror, just before the trees swallowed the road behind us, I saw them standing at the edge of the forest, watching, waiting.